to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Webby, GA, and Matt are here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say.
Well, folks, it's been and continues to be an interesting season, and this time next week we should, weather permitting, know the championship and premiership winners. Who knows when we'll find out who wins the NDL, but of course there is a bigger and more important trophy, or should I say t-shirt, to win, and that is the winner of the Nigel Pearson Prediction League, and we'll find that out next week on our last show of the season. And talking of predictions, I predict that by the time March comes along, I will be absolutely bursting to say only in Speedway. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening to our listener out there. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. We have got with us today, as per normal, Chris Webby Brown and Matt.
Good evening.
There you go.
I was waiting for another pearl of wisdom. I was waiting for a comment about last Thursday.
Yeah, well, cool. Don't worry about that. And myself, GA, or Michael, or Mike, or
various
you.
other names.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've decided that next week's going to be the last programme, come what may. Yeah. So that means that, as far as the Prediction League is concerned, all the fixtures up till Monday will count.
And
then we cut off whatever happens at that point.
Yeah.
And we'll announce the winner, and we'll get Webby to take his t-shirt off and wash it and put it in the post. Yeah.
I wash it every year.
Yeah, every year.
Before he sends it back to Simon, so...
Yeah.
Oh, no, I shouldn't say that, should I?
You probably shouldn't. Okay, so... where do we start? Well, there's only one place to start. You got slaughtered.
Just a bit, yeah. It was... I've got to say, that was...
We're talking about Wolverhampton,
probably
by the way.
Worst Wolverhampton performance I've seen ever.
Okay.
From start to finish.
Ever?
It was...
in your whole life?
Over the two legs?
In 33 years of watching, absolutely, yeah. It was a disgraceful performance. It really was. It was just a total capitulation. It's happened in 3 semi-finals in a row now, 2019, 2021, and again, got to the second leg of a semi-final and just capitulated. And I was particularly disappointed as well that there's not been any comment from the Wolves management. Peter Adams didn't do any interviews after the meeting. Sam Masters spoke to Eurosport, and you could sense really the frustration, the performance of some of his teammates. I mean, he wasn't, he had 2 race wins, but didn't do much else. But it was just poor gating and just getting bullied all the way through the night. And what was frustrating was that meeting, when you looked at it on paper, was still very much alive. Only 4 points down from the first leg. It wasn't a great performance at Mumma on the Monday, but I certainly expected more of a fight from that. But I just think we needed a good start. And we conceded 2 5-1s in the first 2 races, and I think
never a good idea.
And I think the lead just went out the balloon, and they just capitulated. And but the manner of the capitulation really was unforgivable. And I just wonder whether some of those riders may have ridden themselves out of a potential team place for for 2023.
Well, we'll get on to that because we was asked that question last week and we said we'd both come up with what we sort of wanted for our respective teams, and we all guys want you guys to do the same for yours as well, and we'll probably get to that later. I haven't given it much thought, if I'm honest, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, well, sorry.
Was that a smirk?
Might have been.
Oh, dear.
At least you got to a semi-final.
Oh, that's it. So
You know, there are plenty of
turns it down.
well, not plenty because there's only 6 in the league, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So did all that you can finish 4th from bottom and still win the league, and it's but it was no, it was. I think the less said about it, the better. Really, from a Wolves perspective, it was pretty demoralising.
Well, there's been a few comments up on the shout box about it. Some people seem to be as annoyed as you are. Craig Cook not turned up at Plymouth tonight for Glasgow. Apparently his van broken down. Make of it what you will. Okay.
It's 32-22 in favour of the home side at the moment in that one.
Okay. Who they're playing?
Glasgow.
Plymouth, Glasgow. Yeah.
That's
okay.
right, yeah.
So, Trish Thomas says, last but one show, I've managed to get you up on the 70-inch Sony. Scary. Oh, my life.
No, I'm not at this
Hello. And Duncan Pemberton says, there's my away win for Tigers gone for a Burton. Have we got any more?
Oh, sorry, I'm going. I think
There was a few before talking about the Wolves. Keep going. Okay. So Elliot Hunt says it was just as bad as Kings Lynn performance 2 weeks ago. Went to both meetings and they were a disaster. I think we
touched on that really, didn't we? But again, you know, that sort of set the seed really to go into the playoffs on the back of a really poor performance like that.
I think we've found out what the problem is now. Elliot,
Yeah.
you went to both meetings. Craig Smith says, why was it so bad?
I just felt that there seemed so little, confidence in the Wolves team. And we've done well at Sheffield this season as well. We've had some very good results there. We won there in the League Cup. I went there for the league match in June, and really, we lost the match purely because Sam Masters failed to score in his first 2 rides. And still only lost by 2. But I just don't know where that came from at all. It was just. As I say, the one thing that's I've thought about this since that meeting is that if you look at that Wolves team, there's it's 7 riders. There's 7 riders that sort of guys, great blokes. You'd love to go for a beer with them, but is it maybe did the side really lack a little bit of nastiness in it?
Okay.
Someone who can in the middle order who can grab a meeting by the scruff of the neck and say,
you was going to say something else then.
we're going to win this meeting even if I have to drag the lot of you over the line myself. There seemed to be that little. There was a bit of.
Are you talking about a leader maybe?
Maybe a leader. Yeah, I mean Rory Schlein obviously has been missed because he always he was a good leader and he had that sort of that competitiveness or combativeness about him as a rider. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute a rider who's going to go around and just fence people.
You're hoping to sign Nicky Pedersen next year. Is this what you're saying?
Yes, I somewhat suspect the Wolves promotion would be less than enthusiastic about that prospect. To be honest, given the history between the two parties. So that was something that I thought about. After the meeting was is this a team that sort of got some great people in it. As I say, love to go for a beer with them, but are they really the sort of rides that you want to be in the trenches with? And that's sort of maybe lacking a little bit, to be honest. There's some good rides in that team. Very, very inconsistent though. Luke Beck has looked superb at times, but was poor in the playoffs.
Do you think he could do with going down to the Premiership and getting some easier points to shore up his confidence?
From what I gather, it has been talked about in the past, but he was sort of talked out of doing it. I mean, I did wonder at times whether he possibly would end up at Birmingham, particularly with Lawrence there, because of course Lawrence has got a great affinity with a lot of the younger American riders, and I think he would be an absolute top man in that league. Possibly, yeah, maybe.
We'll watch this space and see what happens. Craig Smee's asking the question, was there optimism when Wolves announced their team at the start of the season, or did the fans think it was an average team?
I was concerned very much about the lack of strength in depth at reserve. Drew Kemp hasn't really delivered this season. At times he's shown glimpses, but he just hasn't been consistent. Leon Flint's got has got a fantastic future ahead of him, I believe.
He's got a great attitude as well, hasn't he?
But possibly, as a leading reserve as he's tended to have to be, he's had to carry the reserve berth really for most of the season. He never really got going in the blast. He battled hard in the second leg. He's probably one of the few rides that sort of
gave it a bit
of a go, but just didn't have the quick speed. It was just pushed out of the way a little bit too much. So
okay, well,
I do sense that there will be some changes in the winter at Wolves. I really do.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. Simon Corbett says, think Sheffield will pull it back at home. Injuries for the Aces. I suppose that depends on how they cover those injuries.
Yeah, obviously Charles Wright is going to be missing. That's a big blow for Bellevue.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad meeting last night. But Bellevue. You always felt Bellevue had Sheffield just about at arm's length. But the Achilles heel for Bellevue this season really is not. It's been their away form. It hasn't been great.
No. 12 points. They're certainly not out of it.
Absolutely not.
I remember a certain performance against a rampant Eagles team
in the 70s. Was that?
No, I'm talking about the NDL one. That was 12 points behind that. And they were crowing about it. And after 2 heats, we'd already pulled back 8 points. So they need a good start, don't they? Sheffield.
They've got to get a good start.
If you get a good start, then you start putting doubt in the other team's heads.
Yeah, they can't. Don't. Say to Sheffield, don't do what he did last week against them. We just could throw 2 5-1s in against. But no, there's definitely hope for Sheffield in that meeting. They've got. Carl Howarth didn't have a great night. He only scored 4 points. Jack Holder only scored 2. They'll do a lot better than that.
Yeah, obviously. Adam Ellis had a fairly good night.
Yeah, Tobias Music obviously had a good night. Scored 8 points. He's tended to start meetings a bit slowly, hasn't he? He did again. He only got a third in his first race, and then followed that up with 2 race wins last night. Justin Sedgman's ridden well in the playoffs, I think, for Sheffield and Conor Mountain.
I think he's done great, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Conor Mountain has shown a lot of promise as well. They've both done well on the home track as well. So that meeting is definitely not over.
That's going to be a good one to see on Monday. Dylan Spuddy, he said, evening chaps, a bit late to the party. Wolves just ran out of steam. Seems like the second half of their season wasn't great. They overperformed in the first half of the season and secured some of the points they needed for playoffs. Interesting to see how many stay next season of the 2022 side.
You would argue that it's not really a big achievement to get into the playoffs in the Premiership now because there's so few teams. More teams qualify for it than don't.
Yeah. Might change a little bit next year because Leicester's going up.
Yeah, I still think.
Soon they've got to be voted up.
Yeah, I still think there'll be another one that may well go up as well.
You still think Glasgow are going to go up?
I think if they can twist their arm enough, then a lot of it, of course, depends on what happens at Edinburgh. Because I think there's still some talk behind the scenes about them maybe trying to get another year at Armadale. Although I don't know how feasible that is. Whilst they're, of course, sort of working on getting their new stadium ready.
Spuddy says, shame to see Sheffield and Lynn are riding on Monday. Was hoping we'd see Pico in the Olympic. So is that on Monday, the Olympic?
That's on Monday, yeah.
So, I might go and see that.
Yeah, it's always a good way to end the season.
I'm missing Speedway already. Might go and see that if it's not too cold. Yeah. Keep going, Chris. Wolves bullied in both meetings, and real problem was gap in last home meeting to play off, and then likewise with riding weekly together in last month to bigger gap in race.
That's a fair point because the last home meeting at Wolves before that before that first leg was on the 30th of August on the bank holiday Monday. So quite a long, and there was a brilliant performance that night against Bellevue, and that sort of momentum was really lost because there was weeks of not doing anything, and then that dreadful results at Kings Lynn to go into the playoffs on the back of that.
Yeah, that does need to be looked at, doesn't it? Wolves appear overperformed. This is Spuddy again. Overperformed this season. There's no doubt about that. We were predicted stone last. Thanks to the good start to the season, they put themselves into the playoffs, but nobody realistically saw them getting past Sheffield. I don't think. I think Seymour. Thank you. I think Wolves learned this season that they need some strength at reserve and possibly a weaker top 5.
Yeah, I think Wolves have always had a tendency to sort of stick with the team for quite a bit of time. I just wonder now whether maybe this team has maybe been a little bit together a little.
I mean, that might have been compounded this year because riders are not available.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's something that British Speedway has got to put right, I think.
Which possibly maybe a little bit easier, of course, with the
Polish
Poles relaxing there. So obviously
if they do.
Yeah, I think their plan is for the Polish league meeting rain-off dates to be Thursday.
Right.
But they will sort of relax the rules a little bit. I think I don't know whether there's some comments have been made about it. I don't know whether it's been made official, but that's sort of what I've read.
Yeah, that's what I've read as well. Yeah. John Bird reckons Wolves need a big heat leader and solid reserve to make a solid team. To be frank, though, Wolves was only the team that did whole season with the same 1-7 playoffs where achievements in itself.
Yeah, only seen in the top 4 to have to stick with the same team for the whole season.
And Lemon said last night, likely to go ride replacement for Wright. Only reserve Zager and Brennan can cover his rides. Guest will be in for Etheridge at reserve. That's makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That's
going to. Yeah. So it's not over. Not over there, Sheffield. I think we'll have a lot of confidence going into that meeting.
Duncan Pemberton says, I love this, by the way. You never know. If Wright got a long-term injury, they might get Schmarzlik in place of him, as the poll has a lower British average. And he's disappeared as well. There we go. And then Charles, because he got his British average at Birmingham.
Didn't do enough matches to get a
probably
proper
not.
average.
Yeah. Craig Smith says, I don't want him. He's never rode in the UK and probably won't be able to ride the Sheffield track. I think.
I think he has ridden in the UK.
He has ridden in the UK. That's true.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll have any trouble riding any track. To be honest, he's a great motorcyclist.
It would be a dream to have Bart Smalling in the British League, wouldn't it? It'd be fantastic.
Well, I think he's going to be riding for us next year, but
in the championship.
Yes. Spuddy says, was dreading the season finishing there, as I have no idea what to post on Steph's racing page to keep it active during the off-season. Any ideas welcome. Okay.
Well, you can go through some of our old videos. Feel free to share them.
And Spuddy, these are just coming in, and keep them coming in, guys. Talking of ride replacement, if you're not, go follow the ride replacement account on Twitter.
I've seen that.
What a legend, whoever the person behind that account is. I have not.
I've seen it, yeah, I followed it as well. It's funny, but the frightening thing is how true it is as well. So
I will check that out.
Yeah. It's 36-24 now at Plymouth, so Plymouth on the way to ending the season on a high.
They've
had a decent season, haven't they? Plymouth?
Yeah,
just fell short
with 6 riders. That's not bad.
Just fell short, and Glasgow I think deflated really after that hammering they took.
Yeah, and we should talk about
Paul,
should talk about that as well. I mean, you got to say, the 2 strongest teams have definitely got through to the final.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that final, of course, because that is due to take place this week.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Championship teams to Premiership. What's your opinion, guys? I don't know, as I've got one, really. Your thoughts?
Same. Same.
It's we will see.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what they set the points limit at.
I hope so. I hope it's I just hope it's one where there can be sort of a fair distribution among the leagues. So we can have a competitive. Because I think certainly in the last couple of seasons, there's been too many matches that have been non-competitive really in in the both leagues.
Thanks for putting that pen down, Mike.
Wolves should give Ben or Zach Cook a go next year. Shall we get into that? Shall we get into that? When we'll start off with your team.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a difficult thing for us to say because we know some of a lot of the riders listen to the show, but so none of this is personal.
No.
So, yeah. What are your thoughts on who do you think Wolves should keep? Who do you think they will
Sack the
keep?
lot. No, that's not a joke. I think Sam Masters. I personally, I would keep three of them. I would keep Sam Masters, Luke Becker, and Leon Flint.
Right.
Ryan Douglas had disappointed me. But he started off the season really, really well and was actually showing some signs of being able to master Mamba as well. But as like with the team in general, as phased as the season's gone on, Nick Morris, I think, will probably be with Leicester next season, leading their charge. I think a lot of people are probably going to be raising eyebrows about the fact that I've not said Steve Worrell. Steve Worrell's had a brilliant season. I mean, I've voted for him as our rider of the season.
Right.
Is he going to be able to match that next season? He's been superb this season. I mean, he's ridden the whole season in the difficult number 2 position, and he's done. He's been very solid. Apart from right at the start when he was riding a number 5. That I suspect he probably will be back, but I'm not so sure whether that would be the right move. And Drew Kemp, as I say, I don't think Drew Kemp will be riding in the top league next year. I think
for anybody.
I just don't think he's made the progress that I think a lot of us were expecting.
Mm-hmm. What's that down to? Is that down to Wolves track, or is it notoriously difficult for some riders anyway to get the head round?
Yeah, I just don't think he's been consistent enough. There's times when he's looked really, really good. He's been a couple of meetings where he's maybe been a bit of a match winner, but too many meetings really where he just hasn't got going. And I think having 2 weeks, I've always felt that a successful team needs a good number 1 and a good number 7.
Yeah.
And Wolves have had a good number 1 this season in Sam Masters. He's one of the best riders in the league. There's
Didn't
no doubt
show
about
it
that.
much in the
Although
playoffs.
I think possibly the injury that he's
Yeah.
had has maybe sort of hindered him a little bit in the second half of the season. And you need a good solid reserve as well. Number 1 who can go out and you're confident they can go out and win the first race.
Right.
And set you in. I mean, he won the first race at Sheffield last season and that didn't really do much. But yeah, that's what I would look at the moment. Probably those 3.
So, who would you be looking at as replacements? Do you think? I've given you a wish list here. Mm-hmm. You can pick any rider that you want. Who would you like to be looking at?
Well, I think difficult one to say when he's put in front of you like that, isn't it? Really, because you looked at the.
I can give you John Bird's if you want me to. And you can comment on that. So he's said this will fit in with the averages: Sam Masters, Steve Worrell, Luke Becker, Leon Flint, Peter Pavlichki, Scott Nichols, and Rasmus Jensen.
I can't see Pavlichki coming back to the UK. I mean, he was with us before, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work out. Scott Nichols, I think, possibly. I suppose, obviously, it depends on which number of the team he's.
He started off well for you, didn't he? Was it last year?
2019 was the last season before COVID. Yeah. He hasn't had a great season for Peterborough. No. In fairness, in the top league. I like Rasmus Jensen. I think Rasmus Jensen. I've always rated him. He was very, very impressive when I last saw him race in the UK. I'd like to see maybe a couple of Scandinavians come over because Wolves have got a good reputation with bringing Scandinavians over, particularly with the Swedes, with the Carlsons, and we always had a lot of Danes back in the 80s. Although it never tended to be the top Danes, which was a bit strange. With
Hans Nielsen.
Danes were the top boys in the 80s. Now Ham and Hans were for Wolves in the 70s. So.
Craig Smith said if Ty wants to come back to the UK, would he be going to Wolves? Who knows?
I think if he did come back to the UK, it would be with Wolves. I think purely because of the relationship he's got with Peter Adams.
Okay.
Suppose it depends on what sort of offer he got. If he got a good offer from somewhere else, I'd love to see Freddie Lindgren back in the UK as well, but I think at this stage it's very unlikely. Obviously, Freddie's still having a lot of issues with long COVID. I think he's done remarkably well to do as well as he has this season, considering all the health issues that he's had.
Philip Hellstrom-Bangs would be a good call, but after how he raced for Bellevue, I think he'd go there. So that's said Spuddy.
There's quite a few comments.
There's an awful lot. I mean, we're not going to be able to keep up with all of them.
No,
A lot of people. I've heard rumour Waffy to Wolves next season, says Spuddy. I do. We sort of hear. I think we hear that rumour every year, don't we?
Yeah.
I do see him back in the UK. I think, as Matt says, the relationship with Pete will bring him to Wolves if he did come back. So
it would be great to see him, Robert Lambert and Dan Beardy all back in the league, wouldn't it? Particularly with the fact that they've, okay.
Robert Lambert's come back like a whirlwind, hasn't he?
I wouldn't be surprised if you see Robert Lambert and Dan Beardy both at Bellevue next season.
Next year.
They could certainly fit them both in.
That would be a good team.
Yeah, be a good top end. They'd be certainly a team that everybody would want to watch, wouldn't they? So
absolutely. Okay, so I'm now interested to hear your opinion. This is me prevaricating madly now. I'd like to hear your opinion on, because you've watched Birmingham as well this year.
Yeah.
Who would you keep?
Well, there's not many to keep, are there? Because unless you take all the guests out.
I mean, of the riders that we have used, of our own riders,
Justin Tesman, I think there's a good possibility that he'll be back. I think he's, considering the almost disgust, if you like, when the club signed him. I think he's done remarkably well. He's really has done well. I think he's popular with the fans. I was really impressed with how he spoke at the end of season presentation night for Birmingham. I think there's a good possibility that he'll be back. I think James Shanes and Ashley Morris, I'm not so sure. I don't know whether I think they've possibly maybe come to the end of the road with Birmingham.
I think James Shanes may have come to the end of the road with Speedway. I think he's possibly had one injury too many. The way he was talking.
I feel the same way with Ashley Morris as well. To be fair, he hasn't had a great season this year, has he? And as I say, James, it's a shame because you know yourself. I mean, you know them both quite well. Both terrific lads who love riding for Birmingham, but I think if Birmingham want to try and climb the league, I think maybe there's a lot of changes that are going to be made. I think it's paramount for this season for Birmingham that they have a stronger team this year. They can't afford another season of struggling
absolutely
to
not.
the wooden spoon.
I mean, I would say with James Shanes, if he's at reserve, he's a decent reserve.
Yeah.
But he's coming back from injury again.
Yeah.
How long is it going to... So, as much as I hate to say it, I sort of agree with you on that one. Now, the Ashley Morris thing... I love Ash. I think he's great, and he loves this club as well.
Yeah, local lad as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I was all for him coming back this year because I remember what he was like before he had that injury.
Yeah.
He was like riding like a heat leader, quite literally.
Yep.
He had a maximum, I think,
in his last match,
before his injury.
So.
Yeah. So it's definitely there with him, but I'm not sure his priorities are as heavy on Speedway as they were then because he's got a family now.
Yeah.
So as much as I hate this, and if you're listening, Ash, I'm sorry, mate. I feel the same as you. I think it's probably good for Birmingham and maybe even good for Ash to go somewhere else.
James Pearson, I think there's a possibility that he'll be back.
I think we haven't seen the best of James Pearson. And
he'll not obviously know more what to expect next year if he does come back.
Yeah, but he these last 3 or 4 matches were quite impressive, actually. I thought he rode quite well.
Admittedly, they weren't pressure matches, but there's always
they were all pressure matches for him, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think they were all pressure matches for him because he knows that he'd got those matches to show what he could do. So I think for him they possibly were. So I mean, I would definitely have him back. I mean, you got to remember how young he is as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of and he's not been phased by anything.
No, he hasn't. I can't say I know him particularly well, but I know people who've spoken to him and said he's a fantastic lad, very
He's
very
a nice
polite,
lad, yeah.
and very enthusiastic. And he's clearly. I saw enough in that opening meeting that he rode at Wolves on right back in March.
Right.
You know, probably not the sort of track that he would have ridden very often, and I thought he did pretty well. And also did, and by all accounts, did well at Leicester as well, which is again is not an easy track to ride.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he can be more consistent with his gating, he'll get points.
yeah, and I think as well with James Pearson, the older he gets, obviously, the more he'll bulk up, because I think the problem at the moment with his age is that he's. I mean, there was that meeting. I think was it Scunthorpe when he raced Simon Lambert 3 times, and
Simon Lambert just went, move out my way, please.
Simon Lambert's, he's a quite a big bloke, so obviously just pushed him out of the way. I think that's probably maybe where James Pearson maybe fell short. That's obviously not his fault, of course. That's down to his age, but as he gets older, then that will sort itself out.
Spuddy says, I think riders like Sam and Pico in the team for Brum would bring a lot more people through the gates too, Wolves fans included. I plan on going to Brum a lot next season. Brought myself a Brummies t-shirt and everything. Good man. Yeah. I think this season was a trial season to a degree. Next year will be the big one for the new promotion at Perry Bar. Well, they're certainly talking it up.
Yeah, well, they haven't got to sort of rush around and having had to wait until December to declare. They've already declared their intention to run, so they'll look. I mean, I've no doubt that Nigel told me Lawrence will have been planning for the last 2 or 3 months. I think for this season, it's a possibly the biggest season for the club since the relaunch in 2007.
Every season seems to be.
Yeah, but I think this one in particular, they've got to get this season right. I think a lot of things have gone badly wrong for the club this season with the injuries and all the problems at the start of the year. None of them were down to the club's own doing. That was, but it's just been such a big learning curve.
So I'm looking at. I mean, there's loads of people's putting their opinions on who they should have, and the name that keeps coming up is Tom Brennan, because obviously Glasgow will be going up to the.
Have you just revealed something that you shouldn't have done there? Or?
No, not at all. I haven't said. I said.
You said as Glasgow are moving up, so.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah,
well, I'm just reading something. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's Leicester. That's moving. I was just reading what somebody said here. Actually, if Glasgow, it does say if Glasgow go up. Yeah. I'm going to wake up in a minute.
I just thought I'd pulled you up over that. So.
Brennan could go to Brum. I mean, hey. Yeah, personally, Tom Brennan's a rider I would love to have at Birmingham next year.
He's done well at Birmingham.
He's done well at Birmingham.
Guest as well.
And he's got a good rapport with the fans. I mean, he showed that in the last meeting that he rode with, which was the under-21s, wasn't it? He was, he's got a good rapport with the fans. I mean, if Glasgow go up, I think it would almost be a certainty that he'd probably come to Birmingham. I don't think it's beyond the question that if Glasgow don't come up, that he comes to Birmingham. So, I mean, watch this space. Pico. Oh, God, I would love... he's such an exciting rider.
Yeah.
I would love him.
Birmingham needs another Jason Lyons, I think, don't they? They need someone who's a number one who's going to,
Birmingham have always been best... They had their best times really when they've got a number one Australian.
Yeah.
You go right back to Graham Warren, of course. That's just for your dad because he'll.
Yeah.
Phil Hearn in the 70s. And then Jason Lyons.
Did Billy Sanders have a season at Birmingham?
Yeah, we try not to talk about that.
Fair enough.
We try not to talk about that. That was he had half a season with us and then went back to
Ipswich.
Yeah. That's the name that I've just noticed that John Bird's mentioned. Paco.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a decent season, hasn't he?
Well, you say he's had a decent season, but you look at his average, it's not that high, which to me makes him very attractive indeed.
Yeah, he tends to stay around the same average, doesn't he? Yeah, was very popular at Birmingham in his last spell with the club, and he was always welcome back when the meetings that he guested for the club last year. So,
Do you think Tom Brennan could end up at Wolves?
Not so sure. I think if he's in the top league, he'll stay at Bellevue, if they can fit him in.
Brennan is living locally to Wolves too, as well as Pico, so wouldn't it be too far for him to go to Brum home meetings? Pico, I would cut my right arm to have him. He's such an entertaining rider that never gives up.
Yeah.
That would be a great, Pico, Sedgman and Brennan would be a great heat leader trio, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Spuddy says, I wouldn't touch Stark. Spent more time with his physio than his teammates this year.
Yeah, it's a shame. I like Paul Stark. I think he's got a lot about him as a rider. But again, I think as we've talked about with James Shanes, maybe as sort of injuries have sort of stunted his progress a little bit.
So I definitely have, and I'd have Paco back as well. I think he'd be a good number 2.
Yeah,
good rider to have at number 2 because we know he can gate. And I think that's half the problem for a number 2.
Yeah,
getting out in the first corner.
Yeah, I think that's why Steve Worrell's had such a good season, because he's gating this season, although when he misses the gate he still has a tendency to not be able to battle his way through, unfortunately. So.
But I mean, that's something that Paco's got better at though, hasn't it? I mean,
it is, yeah.
Because when he first started, it was inside, but now he's using the whole track. So he's one of those people that think about it.
Yeah.
A bit like Tom Bacon used to.
Yeah, and he's a character as well, isn't he?
He's a hell of a character.
Obviously, he's been on our show before, so...
Yeah. We couldn't stop him. Spuddy says he doesn't think Paco's progressed much this year. Yeah, I mean, he started the year not as a reserve and kept his team place not as a reserve, so that's something I would guess. Spuddy says, personally think the championship average needs to drop slightly and bring back the RS, and the Premier needs to go up a bit to show a real difference between the two leagues. I think that's probably going to happen with the championship, from what I'm hearing, that they're going to cut the points limit not too drastically.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen in the Premiership, because they've got new teams, well, a team and possibly 2.
Yep. I think a lot of that with the championship is probably geared around stopping Paul having such a strong team. I mean, let's be brutally honest, Paul shouldn't be in the championship, I don't think, but it's obviously they've got the reasons for being in this league, and you have to respect their wishes.
Maybe with the likes of Leicester going up, they might rethink that.
Possibly, yeah.
Particularly as they're having to go to Glasgow, so places for playoff meetings and so on. Plymouth 10 points up after 12 heats against Glasgow. I think, looking at the time, gentlemen, it's 22. I guess we should have a look at the league.
Yep.
The important league.
Okay. Just before that, let's say massive thanks to everybody who's donated via our star system.
Absolutely.
I think we've decided that maybe everything collected will go towards the Ben Fund. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
We probably won't do it this season. We'll carry it on to next season, and we can get a few more quid. There we go.
There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Good
so
stuff.
We want the,
What do you think to Rising Stars next season? Do you still class Tom Brennan as a residing star? He's definitely residing. Now he's made the main body of the team this year. I think there will be Rising Stars in the Championship. It's been a success, I think,
in the Premiership.
Yeah. No, but I think it'll happen in the Championship as well.
I hope so. I'd like to see it. I mean, I think it's always mystifies me that the top league seems to be more willing to do these sort of things with young British roads than the second tier does. But hey-ho.
Shout out for Tobias Muslak too, who auctioning off his Sheffield Kevlars for the Ben Fund. All info on the Ben Fund Facebook page.
Yeah, fantastic.
There you go.
I seem to have lost the fixtures. Change yourselves.
Apparently, Paul will be next on the Gaming International shopping list. Do not understand that, but for what it's worth.
Well, Swindon obviously with
oh, okay,
there, of course,
okay,
so,
right. Yes,
and Reading, of course, as well. They were promised a new stadium, and 15 years later,
Yeah.
we're still waiting. So.
I mean, we should have a little chat about that at some point. Maybe we'll leave it next week now, but it's a sad state of affairs.
Are we still struggling to find the...
Yeah,
For some reason it's,
we
so I
haven't
can
got
see him concentrated.
we
so.
haven't got. Yeah, it's not a pretty sight. I have to be honest.
Okay, sorry about that.
Have we found it?
I'll keep looking for it.
Okay.
But,
Have you got? You've got it in front of you, haven't you?
I can get it in front of me, no doubt about that.
Okay. Oh God, he's turned into.
Calvin Tatum.
Yeah.
All
No
right,
doubt about that.
it should be that, shouldn't it, really?
Yeah.
With his,
Without a doubt.
I've got my dirt on me down here, actually, so...
I don't think we want to know. Does it vibrate?
No, let's not go there. So. Okay, then. Well, I've got the fixtures here, then. So, first up is the second leg of the Championship Knockout Cup final, and that is Poole against Redcar. Of course, Poole have got the lead from the first leg.
Okay, and I believe it is Matt's go.
I'll go Poole by 50.
Sorry, I went Matt's go. And his name's Chris. But go with you because he's a bit busy.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm going to go Poole by 14.
Poole by 14. I'm going to say Poole by 20.
I'll go Paul by 16.
Okay, let's go.
Next up is the second leg of the Premiership Grand Final, Sheffield against Bellevue.
Your chance to piss one lot of
Bellevue
supporter off
by
the room.
6.
Bellevue by 6 at Sheffield. Okay, with all the injuries that they've got. Okay. I'm going to say this has got to happen. Sheffield by 12.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
I've got to get one of these right.
I'm going to say Sheffield by 10,
Okay,
just to miss out.
Just to miss out.
Bellevue
Okay.
to finally end their long wait. Okay, next up is the first leg of the NDL Cup final. That's Leicester against Mildenhall on Saturday.
And that's to me, isn't it? I'm going to say Leicester by 12.
Yeah, I'm going to say Leicester by 10.
I'll go Leicester by 14.
Okay, next up is the NDL playoff semi-final second leg, Mildenhall against Berwick. It was a brilliant performance by Mildenhall last week and Berwick to make sure that they're still in with a very, very strong chance of getting into the final.
How much are they behind by?
I can't remember what it was now, but they I think it was very, very close in the meeting. So let's have a look. We should sort of know this, shouldn't we?
Should really.
We sort of claim to be connoisseurs of Speedway, so we're not dissing the...
What's a connoisseur? Is that
Is
that a naughty word?
46-43 to Berwick in the first leg.
so
Only 3 points in it.
3 points.
3 points in it.
I'm going to say I can't say 3 points to.
Well, you could do. But,
yeah, 4 points to Mildenhall.
Yeah, I'm going to say Mildenhall by 6.
I'll go Mildenhall by 10.
Okay, next match.
Next up is the League Cup final, first leg, which we've known the finals since the end of April, but we're staging it in October. But less about that, the better. Kings Lynn against Sheffield.
That's up to you, Chris.
Sheffield by 4.
Going to say a draw.
I'm going to say Sheffield by 4 as well. I suppose a lot of it may depend on whether Sheffield are deflated or whether they've won what they wanted and maybe not as maybe can't raise the game again for the League Cup final.
Or maybe give Kings Lynn the kick in because they're so fed up.
Yeah.
I mean, it could go either way, couldn't it?
Have we seen the table bit, by the way, or are we still struggling?
I'm going to get it up.
He's working on it. I can see him working hard on this.
That's the wrong one.
So, next match.
That's it.
Oh, that's it.
That is it, yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay.
I think I've got the table.
You got the chairs.
That looks like it.
I wish I could see it.
There we go.
Yeah, I wish I could see it as
there
well.
we go. Let's see if you can
Right, so we've got, it's 239, 238. Have we got? Wow.
Andrew 236, so it's very much a 3-horse race at the moment. Well,
Yeah.
Simon, of course, is going to pull an extra point up because Plymouth have, I think, now effectively beaten Glasgow in their meeting.
That's close, isn't it? There, 1 point.
Well, it's about to become 2 points, to be fair, but obviously a lot's going to. Well, I mean, obviously this week will be the big week, so a big week needed for Ben and Andrew if they're going to push for that championship.
Or a rubbish one. But
Yeah, by Simon. So.
yeah. All to play for, as they say. We will know next week. Right, so we continue with our comments. Brian says at least 5 of the current Leicester riders are going to be looking for new clubs next season. Okay, I mean that's true.
Yeah.
Who would we have? I mean, given is there anybody that you would have? And is it? I mean, obviously the Thompson twins have got a.
Not for the top league yet, I don't think. I think they need another year.
No, but I'm at for Brum now.
Oh, for Brum, sorry.
They might be, because they've got a bit of history at Birmingham as well, haven't they?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So,
that's a
but
possibility.
of course, we ought to talk about that championship final because, of course, it is over the weekend. Poole against Leicester. So
it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but they're good final. It's the 2 strongest teams. It's sort of Leicester's home track advantage against Poole's ridiculous top end strength.
Yeah, but Poole suddenly in recent weeks have been excellent, haven't they? So they've, and Leicester, of course, have already won at Poole.
Isn't
in the
that
league,
just
so
like Poole though? They always know how to be good towards the business end.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That is, of course, next week as well, by the way, on the 21st and 22nd of October. So, so that one there. First leg is at Poole on the Friday. 24 hours later, they will meet at Leicester. It would be typical Speedway, wouldn't it, if Poole win the championship, but Leicester go up. So,
yeah, I mean, could you see Poole going up?
I think it's unlikely myself.
Given
Unless there's a serious change of heart by the owner. I think there are issues over Poole's long-term future with the stadium at the moment, which is possibly another reason why they're sort of
going up.
a bit dubious about making the plunge of going back into the top league. So, but as I said before, I mean, Poole really should be in the top league. To be fair, it's a bit of a nonsense that they're riding in the championship, in my opinion. But it's up to them.
Yeah. Graham Oldfield says Kyle Howarth going to Brum. I don't know whether that's a wish or a prediction.
Yeah, Carl Howarth would be a good sign for Birmingham. So comments been made there. So,
and Craig Smith says he believes Chris Harris has already signed for Leicester. I've heard that.
Yeah, I have heard that rumour. Yeah, so that's another Midlands club on Bombers CV. So,
okay. Well, I'm ever so sorry, gentlemen, but I've got to go to the toilet.
goodness sake.
Oh dear.
So, talk amongst yourselves.
We certainly will. I'll go through some of the comments.
Yeah, so look there. So Simon Corbett says Conor Martin. Is that for Birmingham? Do you mean Simon? So Dylan says I've heard Bomber to Leicester too, along with the current Bellevue rider, which would add fuel to the fire of Bewley to Bellevue. I definitely think Dan Bewley will be back at Bellevue. I think Dan Bewley wants to race back in the British League. And I think, as I said last week, I think at his age and Robert Lambert as well, I think they both need to be racing in the UK. Certainly need to have that regular and consistent amount of meetings during the season. Dave Tryon says Fordham says the Pirates will remain in the Championship, but the Premiership door never completely closed. As I say, as I said, I think Poole should be in the top league. I've said that. I was very, very surprised when they made the decision, although I think it had been rumoured for a while that they were considering dropping back down. suppose a lot of it really with Poole was the fact that they lost their Wednesday meetings. So Dylan says, come on, get yourself under control here, baby. Dylan says the worst part is the Premiership race night was moved to Thursday to incorporate Swindon's needs, and now they're no more, unfortunately. Be interesting to see if Poole would still be in the Premiership if they'd stuck to Monday and Wednesday rather than Thursday. That is a fair point. Obviously, Swindon, of course, I think Swindon had disposition to run meetings on Thursdays, and obviously we'd dearly love to see Swindon back, and hopefully the door's not completely shut on a way back into Speedway for Swindon. Although I think it's pretty clear that it's not going to be
at
at
put money
London.
on it, Matt.
Well, I was quite surprised at the way that it was sort of announced by Terry Russell. The statement that Terry Russell really released almost seemed to be a case of, well, if I can't run Swindon Speedway, nobody else will. I'm sure that wasn't the case, but that's how it read. It's a real shame because Swindon have been a fantastic servant to British Speedway. They've been the dominant club in recent seasons in the top league. And all that extra work that was done on reshaping the Swindon track in its last season, and it produced some brilliant racing, and it only gets one season.
Think of the money that's been spent.
There was a lot of money spent. As I say, there was a lot of work done at similar to Birmingham last season. Really, a lot of work has been put into sort of getting the track right after the horrors, really, if you like, of that last season under the Masons.
We seem to have a new presenter.
Oh, we do, yeah.
Yeah, he's better than the one I'm sitting opposite.
That little hairy one there.
Yeah. Well, if that moment doesn't go on podcast of the year, I don't know what will. That's very embarrassing. Okay.
Dylan says, I can't look at Bomber quite the same after the 2017 final. Always wanted him at Wolves. And
he's
I've now lost it.
disappeared.
Yeah.
He's
distracted now, isn't he?
Sorry.
No, keep going.
No, that's it.
No. We was. There you go.
I always wanted him at Wolves before that, but the cut runs deep after 2017. Yeah, so I've always felt the same, Dylan. It's Bomber always seems to rise to the occasion in the playoffs. The only time he didn't was when he had a Wolves race jacket on. So Rich Thomas says Swindon for next season, new track please. Yeah, we're all keeping our fingers crossed for Swindon and Coventry and Edinburgh as well, of course. Of course, they're what's programmed to be their farewell to Armadale.
And Coventry and and Newcastle.
Yeah. We've lost too many clubs in recent years, haven't we? So we can't keep losing the clubs.
We're right at the cusp, aren't we?
Yeah,
I would say. It's horrible.
Jess Coulson says that's the only thing I'm worried about with Leicester going up. No more Saturday racing apart from the Cubs. I think it's a good thing that there is going to be some racing on a Saturday night at Leicester. I think, as I said last week, I think Leicester are probably now in a much more stable place than they were when they made the decision to go up into the top flight the last time. They'd only come back about a couple of years earlier, and I felt at the time it was maybe a bit too soon, and they struggled really, didn't they? I think they never managed to get a competitive team. Even the one season they managed to sign Martin Vasilik, which looked which on paper was a brilliant signing, and he got injured in the first heat of the first match and missed the rest of the season. Yeah. So I wish Leicester well. And again from my perspective, of course, it's obviously a bit of a local derby. Of course, Leicester's is East Midlands, but it is Midlands.
From a Birmingham perspective, it means we haven't got a local derby now.
Yeah, unless you count Oxford.
I mean, that's better than
nothing.
But yeah, I mean, and it'll mean I'll have to go to Oxford this year, I suppose.
Yeah.
Next year, I should say. But
as some of us are getting old, Mike.
We're all of us getting old.
I'm guessing you can't remember at the beginning of the season your predictions.
I can't. No, have you got them?
No. But I damn well wish we had. I can
remember two of mine. I went for Sheffield to win the top league, and I went for Leicester to win the championship. So I'm still on course.
You're still on course.
Yeah.
I think next season we'll have 3 envelopes and we'll write them down and we'll keep them in here so we know.
We'll do a time capsule.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
Okay.
do a time capsule. Yeah, and
There
you
you
can
go.
get that wrong as well.
More than likely, because I'm always going to put Birmingham in the top 3. I can't help it.
There is another way you could do it. You could have the 3 of us could pick the name out of an envelope but not read who's on the envelope, and then we opened it at the end of the season.
Did that make sense to you?
No.
You have an envelope with the team's names, and you pick one. Don't look at the name, and then you put it back in the envelope, and then it's opened again at the end of the season, and you see the name that you picked.
So you mean guess?
Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
Like we
so
normally do anyway.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
like a lottery.
Like a
Yeah,
lottery.
like a lottery, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we could do, yeah. There's no skill in that though, is there?
No.
No, it's just luck.
Yeah, I've probably got more chance.
I suppose it's worth 50 quid.
Dave Twine said I picked Leicester to win the league. You're still on the on the. I mean, everybody picked Paul to win the league, apart from you.
No, I didn't pick. Well, still possible though.
Yeah, but
But then mine's still possible as well. So
yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
yeah.
We will know this time next week.
Yeah.
We have 3 minutes to go, gentlemen. Last show next week.
Yeah, get your. Let's sort of look at that, because I think obviously we'll be looking at things like Broader of the Year, Moments of the Season, Team of the Year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Gaff of the season.
gaff of the season. I think I've just done it.
Yeah.
So no, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So actually, that would be a good idea for you guys to put your suggestions of a what of the season. You
Yeah.
know, so rider of the season.
Yeah.
Come up with some daft ones as well, just to.
Yeah, and we'll give you what we think.
Yeah.
Do you think the Jubilee Cup will get done? Do we care? I think is the. Does anybody care?
It just hasn't caught the imagination, has it?
No, because it's been done wrong.
Yeah.
Still being talked
Been
about.
done wrong. Can we have flop of the season for our individual clubs? If
Oh,
you
that's
put
a
it up
good
there, that would be I
That's a
mean,
good
just
one,
remind
yeah.
us next week,
Yeah,
and
we'll have
we'll
that next week. Flop
we'll
of
have a
the-
party.
Yeah.
Envelope, good idea. You could call it the Game of Groans from Dave Twine.
Bones.
Where the game of moans. That's apt for a Speedway.
Yeah. Okay.
Rich Thomas wants to know: is it a 2-hour special? I think the answer to that, having thought about it carefully for a millisecond, no.
Yeah.
And also, just before we go, thanks to everybody who's downloaded our podcast as
Yep.
well over the season and over the weeks. We've consistently been in Apple charts practically every week. I think last week we had 2 shows in the top 100, which is it's pretty fantastic.
Not bad for a little
really.
Speedway show.
No.
Yeah.
Pretty good, yeah. So many thanks and keep it going, and don't forget to tell everybody, especially your mum.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, and we'll. I mean, I think we'll do loads of thank yous next week.
Yeah, so we come in Dicky Bows, shall we?
But on my motorbike.
He might look like people might think he's advertising to be the next James Bond or something.
Yeah.
He turns around the bike with a dicky bow.
Yeah,
So.
that's true.
I was trying to think of something James Bondish to say, then I couldn't. But hey ho. See you later, Miss Moneypenny. See you all next week, guys.
Good night.
Good luck to your team if you're in one of these playoffs. And hard luck, Matt. See you soon. Bye bye.
Good night.
Yeah, night.
Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Where the